Today I'm very excited to be talking with one of my favorite people in the world, Eric. He's the founder and managing partner of Chanzo Capital. He also has I don't want to call it a venture. He started a conference where he brings together startups and investors from all around the continent and the world. It's not even just the African continent, the world. This is the 11th anniversary of this, so you've been doing this 11 years. You jump around to different countries. You started off with the Kings, so Kenya, South Africa, Ivory Coast, Nigeria, Ghana, and this year we are in Nairobi for the second time. And you're one of my favorite people because I had a dream a few years ago to start investing, right? Start investing, and I started doing that in startups, right? Angel investing in startups. But then I had a 3 or 4 year plan to eventually get into investing in Africa because different climate, different legal regime. I don't want to say different business models, but different hurdles businesses have to jump through. And I said, you know what, I'm probably not going to get started 2024, 2025 was really my target date. And you pushed me in the water in 2023. So thanks to you, you directly gotten me 5 deals. I've done 7 deals in Africa in the last 18 months. I would love for you to introduce yourself and really share your vision as we get started.
Well, thank you, and I really appreciate you coming for this year's event. It's our 11th anniversary for Angel Fair Africa and the 10th anniversary for Chanzo Capital. So actually, I started Angel Fair Africa in 2013, and the following year was when I realized I needed to set up a firm or a fund, or a firm to manage a fund, because a lot of the people who came to the events in the second year wanted to give me their money to invest. They didn't want, some of them wanted to do it directly, others said, can we just give you the money? Obviously, then we send out a structure. So that's what led to me starting Chanzo Capital. Actually, I had it in mind to do something, but when that moment happened, I was like, okay, this is the right time to do it. So for me, I started Angel Fair Africa as a little experiment because I'd seen Shark Tank and Dragons Den on TV. And I realized that the same thing was happening in Africa. There were these entrepreneurs who were, coming up with all these interesting ideas, solving problems, and they said, okay, there are also people with capital that are looking for these opportunities. So how do I bring these two people together, right? So that was kind of what I wanted to solve for. And so a few of my friends, initially I sent them their decks and nobody responded. And I realized that, the difference is that I meet these entrepreneurs. I spend time with them, I build relationships, but these guys don't know me. So then I said, okay, how about I invite some of these entrepreneurs and invite you guys and we hang out. And this will be the Joburg Art Fair. The Joburg Art Fair is the biggest art event in Johannesburg. All over the world, people go there to buy acts. So when I moved to the idea, it'd be nice, you don't mind come a day earlier. Well, I come a day early anyway, so I'm just there waiting. And so we launched Angel Fair Africa on the 26th of September 2013. And it was at the Santon Convention Center. It was the day before the Joburg Art Fair. And we had about 25 entrepreneurs from there. Wow. 12 or 13 countries. We had about 68 investors in the room. And 3 deals happened on the spot. And that's when I realized that, okay, this formula, I think we've got something right. But it took us 6 months of planning. Between May and September was when it took us 6 months to go in. I remember I stayed in South Africa the whole time. But that event sort of made me realize that if you are able to curate investors who are interested in investing and prepare entrepreneurs who are looking for investments, take them through a certain process and make them investor ready, you could actually make deals happen. So that has been sort of the formula, the secret sauce of Angel Fair. Now, the two key metrics is that, or what has made these deals happen is that we always make sure there are more investors in the room than entrepreneurs. So we try to say it's not a conference. What we're trying to do with Angel Fair Africa, what we've been doing for the last 11 years, is perfecting this formula. that you have either a 2-to-1, a 3-to-1, or we've had some where it's a 4-to-1 ratio of investors to entrepreneurs in the room. And you make sure that these groups are well curated and prepared. And so when they come in, there's a common objective is to do deals. And deals means, investments, partnerships, mentorship, sales, and other kind of stuff. So over 11 years, we realized about $100 million worth of investments over a period. Some of the companies that you hear raise their first money from our events. Actually, some of the panelists yesterday, 2 of them have raised money from our Cape Town event this last year. Isidore, whom you are an investor in. I mean, Isidore was not selected, Isidore of Rivia was not selected to pitch last year. He said, he reached out to me in the cold, a cold email and said, hey, man, this guy, I've done 2 exits, I'm getting out my second exit now because I've set my time with the company. But I have this idea, and I'm going to be in Cape Town. Can I come to your event? I said, no, we selected entrepreneurs already. So, yeah, but I'll still be around. I said, okay, we'll keep you on the waiting list, and if somebody drops out, then which happens most of the time. And then, when somebody dropped out, Isidore showed up. When he came to the event, he had a different, he had an idea that was not different, was not very different, but it's not what he has now. It wasn't healthcare. He was focusing on different sectors. So at the event, we dig into his idea, and we did a boot camp. And this is why the boot camp is important. So by the time we finished the boot camp, we got him to focus on healthcare. He redid his slide. Actually, the first day, there was a big fight. We gave a lot, there was about 4 of us, investors and other guys who were giving feedback, like they were pitching or giving feedback. And he was adamant, and said, no, this is what I want to do. And then we gave him a lot of feedback, there was a lot of back and forth. And then he went back. The following day he came, the second pitch day, he had taken the feedback given and changed his slides to what we had told him. And for me, that was the first, that's what I started building conviction about him. And this was a founder who had very strong views on what he wanted to do. He came into this boot camp, and we looked at it externally and we gave him a lot of good feedback. He pushed back a lot, we had a lot of very strong discussion, But when he went back, he sort of sat over what we had given him, thought about it, and realized that, maybe they're right? And then took that feedback and then worked it into his slides and came the following day and said, okay, I'm going to start with this sector, and hopefully if it works, I'm going to do the others that I want to do, right? And that's just the feedback we're giving. They said, look, if you're doing healthcare, you're doing beauty, you're doing wellness, you're doing hospitality, that's a lot of sectors, every industry. So start with one sector. And then he had told us that healthcare was sort of, he already had a potential clinic you want to work with. So we kind of tell you, start with one. And then when you succeed over there, then you go to the others. Right? Which was just, we were telling him, focus. Because when he started, yes, you have a big vision, but start small. So for me, that him taking that feedback was the moment I started building conviction. I started building conviction about him, the way he was able to push to get in. He was very, not pushy back, he was polite, but very forceful, right? I really want to be there, right? And then when he got a chance, he came in, he had his views, he gave very good feedback, he took it, and then brought it back. So I felt that this is a guy who I can work with. I want to work with founders who have very strong views on what they want to do, but also they are willing to take feedback and work it into what they do. So anyway, so he came in, he pitched, and we agreed as Chanzo to lead a syndicate. And then we brought people like yourself and others in, and then within 3 months, actually 2 months, we raised, we closed at 50K. And then I told my network, and then fast forward, said they would do another 100K, and then Chanzo Capital, and then as we speak now, he's raised about 200K. It's just 7 months, but he's executed. He's got 8 clinics on his network. He's got 2,000 members, and he's making about 5,000 plus monthly recurring revenue. And it's not even a year yet, right? So actually, last year was our 10th anniversary, and Isidore, I focused on it because it is the perfect example of what I wanted to do with Angel Fair. But it took me 10 years of doing it to bring the level to even to that level where we can have this sort of perfect example. And the point there is that I believe it takes a minimum of 10 years. And this is one of the things we tell our founders is that this is not about overnight success. When everybody tell you about overnight success, they're telling you the thing that succeeded. They're not telling you the 9 years of failing and trying to do stuff that doesn't work. Anyway, sorry, that's a long introduction. But Angel Fair Africa is really how I started doing deals. And so we will do the event. The entrepreneurs will pitch. We will say, we want to invest in this person. We'll create a syndicate or a fund. And then we bring people in and then we invest. So over the 10 years, the first 5 years, between 2015 and 2020, we deployed about $5 million to 16 companies, and we lost 5. By COVID, we did an audit, and the book value was about $50 million. So we call that Fund 1, which is a 10x over 5 years. And then during COVID, because we were doing this event, we had this pipeline of deals. Mm-hmm. So when I sent this to a lot of my friends, that is the return profile on our first fund, people started sending me money. And then we started doing the second set of investments. Mm-hmm. And as we speak now, we deployed about 20 million into now 24 companies. So we have now 35 companies across the King's countries, which is Kenya, Ivory Coast, Nigeria, Ghana, and South Africa, plus Mozambique, Tanzania, Uganda, Zambia, and Senegal. So we've done 5 additional countries in addition to the 4 countries. And also the Kings was sort of our way of starting small, right? I want to invest in the whole of Africa. But when we started, it's like take the 5 countries that you know very well and start from there. Mm-hmm. Again, think big, but start small.
So, wow, that's powerful. And I would ask you this, the 10 years later, you have to put in the work, you're seeing prime examples on top of financial returns, right? On top of financial returns. So what would you say is the vision for the next 10 years?
Right, good question. So I think the last 10 years or 11 years when we take Angel of Africa, what we've figured out is the startup game. Mm-hmm. We now have I won't say perfected, but we have a startup model, and I'll explain to you. So the model we built is a 3-pronged, sort of 3 circles interlooping with each other, mm-hmm. where the founder is in the middle, the founding team is the core. Mm-hmm. We believe, and most investors, it's the founder, the market, and the product, mm-hmm. right? And different investors put different weights. We put a lot of weight on the team, or the founder, or the founding team. Mm-hmm. The people is a pivot in our view. And that is either a founder, a founding team, or co-founders, yes. Right? And we believe that it's that team that builds the product, and it's that team that monetizes the market. Mm-hmm. So our big belief is that focusing on the team and building conviction on the team is the first step in our process. And that conviction building starts from when we meet them. I just explained the example of Isidore, how with time, and then actually he's Ghanaian and I'm Ghanaian, I actually work from the same tribe, but I didn't know him before. I knew of his previous startups, so then I looked him up. I said, okay, the guy was legit. So after Angel Fair Africa, which is in Cape Town, then we went back to Ghana and we met. So we met for the first time, not in Ghana. But we went back, we spent time together, so through that process, I started building conviction. Then the second is that you calculate the execution risk. Now that execution risk for Isidore was, I asked myself, okay, he doesn't have a medical background. And then he said, oh, I'm a co-founder, is a medical doctor, who is actually the one that treated me, that led to me figuring out this model. Because he had an ear infection, went to a clinic, a neighborhood clinic. When he got to the place was so dilapidated, he said, no, it's not going to get better health care. He made turn back. But he went in, and I met this doctor who gave him the best treatment. And so he was like, wow, I nearly, skipped this, but because of the environment, right? So the second thing was, he was able to show me that he had somebody have medical experience and skills in the team, mm-hmm. right? Though he didn't have it. Obviously, he had very good marketing and sales experience. And then the third part of building the conviction, which was really a really wow moment, where he had told me, oh, I'm trying to acquire this company that is already built a medical OS system that I met by the conference, and that's what I'm looking for CTO to build. And I'm in the process of talking to him, and I said, who's the name? He said, Victor Nara. I said, no, I know this guy. I met Victor about 7 years earlier when he started, or 5 years, maybe 5 to 7 years. And he had come to me and pitched me. And I said, look, you're building something great, but you need to find a co-founder who can sell it. You're a great developer, but you need to find somebody who can be the salesperson. And then we talked for a while, and then kind of we lost touch. He lived in the north of Ghana, so he's not that close, so I never saw him often, which makes sense. And then here we were, 5, 7 years later, he is the one that Isidore is telling me about. So I'm like, wow, this is just like, you know. So then it was clear to me that they have the 3 components of making this work. There is Isidore, who is sort of the pivot, you know, the middle of it. Then there is the technical guy, who's Victor, who can help build the technology. And then there is the medical, I'm blanking on his name now, the medical doctor. So I realized that, okay, these 3 people, maybe this is the trio that can execute on this idea. So now it was clear to me that the execution rates could, I could see through the execution rates that these guys could execute, right? And then the last part of the model, then we take a leap of faith. And that leap of faith is believing that these people can do it. Because the reality is that Isidore had never built a medical based startup before. In his case, and to his advantage, he had built 2 other startups before, so he had some experience, which he also talked about that his past experience gave me comfort as well, especially that he had also exited those businesses. So he's gone full cycle, at least twice. And actually, I also spoke to the company, the guy that Onyeka, who was the CEO of Trips, that acquired his startup, and he had worked there, so he had finished his tenure last year. And Onyeka was like, man, I've had a great time working with Isidore, I'm glad I started the new company. And even I want to invest in the company. And for me, that says something about him, that this was a guy who didn't burn bridges. Most people were probably gone on and done it, maybe without telling, the CEO of the company they were leaving, right? But he and, they had a great relationship. He was even willing to back him up, So that's kind of the core of our strategy or the approach to investing. Calculating that sort of execution rates, building conviction, calculating that execution rates, and then taking a leap of faith. And so over the last 10 years, we've used that model to invest in, I would say, probably 40 startups, and we've lost only 5. And we have 35 that's still around. So I think we know something. The error rate is not that bad. Generally, VC or early stage, they say you invest in 10 and then 9 fail and you get 1. But it looks like we flipped it on the head, right? And I think that is a combination of this approach, and then myself and my partners, Tinyiko, and previously Steve, who's now going to set up his own fund. Our background as guys who built business before, and then finance professors. So those skill sets, operational skill sets, combined for us to be able to get this kind of outcomes. So now for the next 10 years, what do we want to do? So the first set of companies we invested in, a couple of them, 2 of them you hear today, Finaccess and Hotel Online, they have started scaling up. And what do we mean by that? They now have operations in Kenya, and now they want to go into Uganda, Tanzania, and actually Hotel Online got an inbound acquirer right after COVID. Obviously, their platform really got hit by COVID because during COVID, nobody traveled, so their revenue dwindled. Right after COVID, a company called Yanota reached out and said, hey, we want to buy you guys because we just raised a ton of money from SoftBank and we want to get into Africa. And we think that you guys are the right guy. We looked at you, you have customers even in Pakistan, But what they did not know that COVID had wiped out all that revenue and they had retreated back to Nairobi. So in the conversation, they said, well, you still are the most likely person who like to work. It's okay, why don't you put $1 million into this company? And then let's get a team to sort of reactivate it, and then when we get to the level you acquire it. So we're on that path now to acquisition. So that's going to informed the next 10 years. What we wanted to do is, how about instead of focusing on startups, we still do startups, right? But maybe do 20-30% of that and spend 70-80% of our effort and resources on scale-ups, which will give us the other 180, because now we can be able to exit this company. So the first 180 is getting in and growing the companies to be operational. And one of the things that I forgot to mention is that out of the first set of companies that we invested in, The 11 that are left, 4 are profitable. We've actually, Hotel Online is the 4th one that became profitable this year. Last year, e-campus became profitable, and the year before, Financial was profitable, and the year before, Hampton was profitable. So we've been making consistent effort that every year we're going to get one of the companies to profitability. What does that mean? It means now they're a sustainable business. They can go and keep growing without investor funds. And for me, this is the key of scaling up, is that I believe you should only scale up businesses that are sustainable, right? Where you have strong unit economics, they can stand on their feet, so that when you raise capital, you're raising the capital to then scale up the business, not to infuse into the business to keep its operation. Because really, in my view, you only have a business when your unit economics makes for you to be able to make a product at a certain price, sell it with a profit, cover your costs, and make a profit. Right? So that discipline is not easy, but we've been making consistent efforts to inform, impose, but to push that discipline into our startups. And that's a discipline I had. When I was a founder, there were no VCs. Back in the day, you have to buy bandwidth. The main reason we had wasn't the way we were selling bandwidth, right? So ISPs, you buy bandwidth for $120, you split it up into 10 units, you sell it for 40, and you make a profit. There were no VCs. Actually, my entire investment, the only person that gave me money was Esther Dyson, who gave me $5,000 and then said, let's be friends. That's the only money I raised my entire life, but I'm still here. So I think that for me, Chanzo Capital, what we've been doing is enforcing that discipline to founders. Also because the reality is that in Africa, the capital ecosystem is not fully developed. So I always tell founders, you need to behave as if the money I'm giving you is the only money you're going to raise. And that should enable you to get to your customers and start getting customer money, because actually that is the best money. So I'm just a bridge for you to your customers. And if this money I'm giving you, which is either 25K or 50K or 100K, the biggest check rate is 250K, you should think about it as, how do I make sure that with this 250K, I can get to customer revenue and be able to build a business based on that revenue going forward. So that's a very important discipline that we impose. And so in the scale-up phase, we're only going to be focused on scaling our businesses that are profitable. And that's what we're going to do in the next 10 years. And in a manner of speaking, the focus is how do we build Africa's next multinational corporations, right? And that's the scale-up game that we're going to play. It's how do we take businesses that are doing well in one country, help them build their capacity, right? So there are 3 elements of this new strategy. It's capital, capacity, and community. Because we figured that if you are going to scale up a business, it's not just enough to raise money for it. It's that even the team itself, the business needs to grow its capacity. And that's why we've launched the Chanzo One Space Startup and Scale Up Accelerator here in 2 Rivers. Because we figured that this special economic zone, this 2 Rivers International Finance and Innovation Center, is a special economic zone that gives you some tax rebates. And so you're paying less tax, 10% corporate tax, no payee, no capital gains tax, and no corporate tax, 10% corporate tax for the first 10 years. So it means that you reduce your tax burden from maybe 25% to 10%. So that's good for a business that wants to grow, right? And then from here, the model is to launch out into the rest of Africa. And that's why we put the accelerator program here. So we partnered with One Space and with Terrific, so that the companies coming here, they reduce their tax burden. It's part of their capacity building. And through the accelerator program, we're going to bring expertise and people that can help them build the needed capacity in order to become a scale-up. Wow. Then the last part is the community, the last seed. So now once we've done this, if they want to launch in Uganda, we can go with them to Uganda because we have relationships that connect them to the business community. They want to go to New York, we can then leverage your network in New York and say, hey, this company wants to come to New York, and you can show them the roads. If they want to go to South Africa, Tiniko is there, he will show them the roads. So the next phase of Chanzo Capital and Angel for Africa is going to be predominantly focused on scale-ups, and we're going to be provided with capital, capacity, and community. And that's on the fund side. On Angel for Africa side, we have now the second day that focuses on scale-up. So the event now has 2 days. Yesterday we focused on startups. So today, which is the second day, we're now going to see the scale-ups. They're going to pitch to us, and hopefully some of them will raise money, and then we'll get them to the accelerator program, and then we'll start scaling them out. So that's going to be our focus for the next 10 years.
Wow. And I think that's very unique, and you touched on it, right? It's different from the Silicon Valley model.
Right.
Grow at all costs to get profitability.
And to be fair, look, the Silicon Valley model works in Silicon Valley. I mean, I live in California, right? I know that model works there because it's a unique model built for that unique environment. People forget the uniqueness of Silicon Valley, and that's why that model works there. So when Reid Hoffman talks about, Chris Yeh, who wrote a book with Reid Hoffman, is a friend of mine, and we had this discussed several times and say, yeah, this model works, and it works in Silicon Valley, right? To some extent, the rest of the US. But if you move it to Africa, it doesn't work because the context is very different. So to be fair, I'm not against the Silicon Valley model. I just don't think that it works everywhere in the world, as it will make you believe.
Now, touching on this, and this is going to be a shorter interview. We're going to do a part 2 then on because we do have to let him go forward to get this conference going. You do a lot of work in jumping around. Met you mostly in New York, but you're in DC. You're in the Bay Area. You're in Florida. You're jumping around Europe. What would you say to the African diaspora or other people who are interested in why invest in Africa or why invest in African startups in particular?
Right, so I'm jumping around because I really believe that Africa will not get its shine, will not get to where it is if we don't connect the diaspora back. Right, I mean, I was a diaspora, but school in the US, but I always believed that Africa was where my destiny was. And that's where all our destinies are, as we know, humanity came from Africa. So I've been playing my little part in getting people like yourself and other African Americans and people in the African descent, I like that, prefer that word, to be connected to the continent. Either you move back or doing something on the continent. Not everybody will move back. I'm not advocating for everybody to move back. But you can still be involved in the continent without being on the continent. I mean, you are here for a few days, it's great, you meet people, you can still live in New York. So I'm not saying that everybody should move back, though I think we need to build a critical mass of people that live on the continent for change to happen. So I think that bringing the diaspora back is a crucial part of the puzzle. And that part is missing. And without that part, the whole of Africa will not get there. And so the diaspora does not only bring capital. People think, oh, if you go there, they're just looking for their money. No, it's skill set. I mean, the experience that you have as an attorney will help a lot of startups. I mean, some of the company that we have, you're helping them with your legal experience already, or your legal expertise. So I believe that the diaspora brings not only capital, but the critical expertise that you need for these startups, right? So I tell them, if you invest in a startup, it's not just about your money. It's also about what you know and the experience you have in the network that can help the startup. And so I think that the African diaspora will play a critical role, and I think that this is the time to galvanize. As you all know, the saying is that this century is the Africa century. But I think that century for Africa, this century for Africa, will not be realized if the diaspora is not part of it. And that's why, in my own little way, I'm trying to help, connect the diaspora back, especially to tech companies, because tech is where I know. But yes, it's not only tech. There's a lot of opportunities in Africa in financial services, in agriculture, in health, so by all means, people will do things in other areas, and people are doing things in other areas. I mean, if you look at the continent, there's a great, lots of effort going into infrastructure. People doing energy, people doing infrastructure, road building, the continent is urbanizing, real estate is growing, people invest in those spaces. So there's a lot of opportunities on the continent, right? But I think that until people come to the continent and have a physical view of it, it's difficult to understand what's going on. There's only that much you can see on the traditional media or the mainstream media and on social media, etc. So Angel Fair is sort of our way of getting people to come every year, once every year. You're coming to do work, invest, but also you get some social experience. So for example, this weekend, we've curated 3 and now 4 experiences, right? There's one where you have a day, if you have a half day tomorrow, you can go to Nairobi National Park and have a great experience. Or you can go to Lake Naivasha, which is about a 2-hour drive out of town. Or if you have the whole weekend, you can go to Diani, out to the beautiful coast, spend a weekend there. Or you go to Tea Farm, which is the latest one that we've added. One of our colleagues' family has a beautiful tea farm. You can spend a day there or 2 hours there and get a great experience. And so we also want people to see Africa, not just, you're just coming to work, but you can have a great experience as well. And so that is sort of what we push out to the diaspora, that yes, you're coming to work, but you also will have a great time, because there's a lot of great experiences to be had in Africa.
Thank you. And I want to echo that, because the last time you've been asking me to come, and I finally was able to make it this time. And the last time I came to Nairobi, I was excited to come to Nairobi, and I was quite disappointed. I guess the place I stayed wasn't the right place. It was, the food was great, the people were great, but it was hard to breathe in that area. And I was just so concerned, because it was a city that I thought I was going to love, and I didn't experience that. But you pushing it and hosting it here, you do different cities, and you hosting it here allowed me to come and experience a different part of the city, where I guess that was just the one small location I was in. And now I'm like, yes, this is the Nairobi I expected. This is the Nairobi I enjoy. I'm looking forward to coming back to Nairobi. And being able to understand as an investor, you were saying not just, okay, you're looking at this business just from that outside scene, but now I'm able to be on the ground and see what are they actually facing somewhat. What hurdles do they have to check through? So I think that's great from the experience of actually coming and being a part of Angel Fair Africa, coming as a member or however, coming to watch and experience it and interact with the people and interact with the city. Right?
And your panel was great yesterday. I'm really glad that you came, because also, it's a two-way learning process. So now, the entrepreneurs can now say, oh yeah, the African Americans or people of African descent are interested in investing in us, right? And so, and also on your panel, you talked about how you look at investment, the things you look out for. So part of this is also just getting entrepreneurs to understand how the investors think, and every investor thinks different. We have commonalities, but everybody has things that they prioritize. And if entrepreneurs don't understand how investors think or what they prioritize, then you can't do deals. So I really appreciate you coming and joining the panel. I mean, the open panel, the entrepreneurs were all excited. Subsequently, you can see their pitch was different, because they realized that, okay, this is what investors look for. So solving that information instrument is also very important, and it's part of what we're trying to achieve.
Yes. So I do have to let you go. I'll say two things first before we wrap this up. One, I'm gonna take the rest of the allocation in the syndicate.
All right, thank you.
I'm gonna offer my friends stuff, but if they don't, I'm taking it. So thank you very much for that opportunity. But two, I really want to thank you. This was a dream of mine. I know we first met at Georgetown.
Yeah.
When you were speaking, I was going around to the Ivy League universities to learn more about investing in Africa, because while I was born in Ghana, I'm also Ghanaian. I grew up in the U.S., so I wasn't disillusioned that I knew Africa when I was growing up. So I went around, and when I went to your panel, I found out you were Ghanaian, but I was just listening to you speak. Your openness and willingness to connect with me, pour into me, and then also give me access to these deals. Not very many people do this, and it's not just to me. You've done it for so many people, right? So this is, I want to say thank you on my behalf, because I would have probably been looking at my first deal next year. Pulling the trigger on my first deal next year, and now we're in 7, and have done some follow-on investments as well, which you was. So thank you so much for what you're doing. Thank you for Angel Fair Africa. Thank you for Chanzo Capital. Thank you for it's tiring, right? It's tiring jumping around. Thank you for all that you poured in. I can't wait to the next 10 years, but the 25th year anniversary. It's going to be beautiful to see. There'll be some unicorns. There'll be some companies that have done so much on the continent. If we want a better Africa, we're the ones who must do it. So thank you very much. Thank you, Eric.
Yeah, thank you too.
My pleasure.
Great.